Welcome to episode 57. We have got Mr. John Ott. You saw the bicep, you saw the peak, and
looking pretty good. I was like, I heard that
shredded, dude.
that shot.
I don't have that yet. Hang on a second. Let me see what we got here. Nope, I don't have any of that, so we're going to stick with you. I'm so glad to have you. And, we've gotten a chance to speak over the last 3 or 4 weeks specifically about this show. And I did my research and my homework. And for those of you who are joining us, we're broadcasting right now on YouTube, on Facebook, around the world. You'll get a chance to hear John's story. But more importantly, you're going to see where John is going. And I think that's a lot more impressive, especially with what he has already built, not only the foundation with his body, but also the foundation of his business. And we think about body and business as being one. I want to hear a little bit because we have an audience that ranges everywhere, age group wise, regionally. And, I'm really excited to, first of all, have you as a guest because John Ott, you can go to Ott Smash at Instagram and follow John. And we're going to talk a little bit about Yup Nutrition here shortly. But can you give us a little bit of history as far as kind of your upbringing, where you came from, maybe how being a professional MMA fighter kind of weaved itself in? So let's start, first of all, where did you grow up? What were you interested in as a kid?
Well, my first memory actually was lifting weights. So when I was a kid, I guess like when you kind of go back, like when I say my first memory was lifting weights, I remember my dad, he brought home this weight bench and it had the plastic weights. Remember the plastic weights filled with concrete?
Yes.
And it had a leg extension, leg curl, and preacher curl attached to get onto it. And I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. So I guess when I think back, I mean, I guess I loved weights ever since I touched one when I was a kid. But it took me a second to actually focus my energy on it. I think, as you grow up, it's really easy. You become good at different things, right? You become good at football, and you become good at wrestling, or you get pulled in this direction, that direction. When, at the end of the day, what you really love, but for whatever reason, because you're good at this other thing, sometimes it's hard to actually do the thing you want to do, and so it took me a while to do that. So, coming up, I remember, so I guess where a lot of it started was when I was in high school. My parents had divorced, and my dad had lost his job, and he was helping flip houses, and he brought me home Arnold's Encyclopedia of Modern Bodybuilding, and I read that thing from cover to cover. And I was young, and they wouldn't let me go to the gym, so I was like, well, I'm gonna get my own gym. So I went and mowed a bunch of lawns, $20 a pop, and I set up my own. I bought my own. It was a power rack, real nice power rack, had the lat pull down attachment set up in the garage. And I was doing it really at that point because I loved lifting weights and I wanted to get bigger for football. You know what I mean? I wanted to get bigger for football. And that's kind of what brought me into supplements. As I was going down this experience, I went to my local GNC store and I met this guy named Justin Torbert who brought me into GNC, so he was like my friend. I go to the store, and he's like the perfect example of like I think what you'd want to have in a store when it comes to building relationships with people. You know what I mean? He really cared about the customers. Really took a real interest in them. And I go there, and most of the time I wouldn't buy anything. I would just go in there, and I'd be the kid just walking around reading every bottle. I was I just thought it was so cool. And at that point, as we're moving forward, I'm really starting to figure out how good of a wrestler I am, and so I start to really focus all my attention to wrestling. My senior year, I actually transferred high schools to go to. It was just a whole nother story behind that, man. That was a crazy. There was Blue Springs South and Blue Springs North, and Blue Springs North had just the best coaches. Mike Haggerty, Matt Cox, best Don Bradley, who he won the U.S. Open. He placed third, I think, in the team trials. Just recently, man, he's still going at it. Really, really tough wrestler, really tough team, and I mean that's part of what built me up, I guess, with my mindset. And as I was wrestling, I ended up getting a scholarship to college, and then as that happens, my career with mixed martial arts takes off. By the time I was 19, I'd won 11 amateur fights in a row and turned pro, and that was kind of the weird spot for me, because when I went pro, I lost a little bit of my discipline. You know what I mean? I was just I still liked the sport, and I was still working hard, but it was like my life was I'd wake up and I'd lift weights. I'd wake up like 5, I'd lift weights, I'd get off work, I'd go to the gym. I'd get off work, I'd go to mixed martial arts practice. I'd get off mixed martial arts practice, I'd run almost 5 miles every single night. Then Friday would come, and I'd get just completely drunk out of my mind. Wake up the next day, go to open mat, do the same thing Saturday night, and then just repeat it. And it was and at that point, I thought it was cool. Like what really got me into it was some of when you get good at fighting, you're a draw, right? And people like it, especially when they have fights like down here. I live in Power and Light, and they would pay you to go have your after party there, and that's kind of like what it got me into that scene. And it was a really unhealthy scene to be in, and I wouldn't say it ruined my career by any means, but as I was transitioning into where I'm at now, that was like one of the things I really reflected on. But my pro career, I really take a lot looking back on that. My pro career, I fought all the real tough people. It's hard. You win 11 fights in a row and then you lose your first pro fight. Although my first pro fight was for a title, Then I went back and forth. I ended up at the Ultimate Fighter tryouts, and the UFC basically told me I needed to fight at 185. And so I made the cut down to 185. I was undefeated at 185, and I got a call from Titan Entertainment. And hold on. So I took basically the UFC told me, hey, just win some fights. We'll put you in UFC. Is pretty much what they told me. You got to make the weight. Mm-hmm. So the first was a smaller local fight, won that. Then Bellator called me up, want to fight on Bellator. Then Titan called me up, and I was supposed to fight at 185, but my opponent had gotten injured. And then Bobby Lashley was the headliner. His opponent got injured. Joe Kelly, who owned the organization at that time, he calls me up and he's like, "You want to fight Lashley?" And
wow,
made me pretty good. So we ended up getting a 2-fight contract, and it was Bobby Lashley and Jake Rochel. Well, honestly, Jake Rochel probably a better fighter. He was a 3-timer from Oklahoma, and those last 2 fights, that the Lashley fight was really hard on me because I was expected to not win the fight anyway. There were some people that actually made a lot of money on me making it out of the first round and going the distance. But at the end of that fight, he was done. And I was really, I think when I reflect, like what I learned from that fight and what I learned, what I had a hard time with as a younger athlete was, really learning from a loss and understanding how to take it. You got to figure, you can't I don't know. I think you only really lose if you stop. You know what I mean? And really you can let a loss eat you up, or you can take away a lot from a loss. And what I do wrong? What could I have done better? Really sitting there and reflecting on it. And then also being able to take, maybe you do have some of that energy, being able to contain it, take it and contain it. Yeah. So then when you're having like a tough day where you only slept 2 hours or whatever, and you got to go to the gym, that's when you pull that out, And but that's what I learned. I had a hard time with the Lashley fight because, man, it was weird. It was like there was no Instagram then. It was Facebook, and I remember I opened up my Facebook the next day and I had like 30,000 friend requests. It was. Oh my gosh. It was I had 30, and at that point it was a weird part of my life because right after then I met my ex-wife. I remember when we went to Florida, and I had met her mom there, and we were walking through Florida, and people were stopping me asking for my autograph, and her mom was just like, "Who is this guy? Like, what does he do?" I'm like, "I don't fight anymore." It was, and we actually, when we were in Florida, it was a pretty cool. We got put in like this presidential suite, and we met these people that had seen my fight. It was real cool. But that fight, the Rauschholt fight, basically, at that point, those were my last 2 fights. And what I told myself was, if I didn't win those 2 fights, then I was going to take the opportunity with GNC. And GNC had offered me the opportunity to be a district manager. And I'm happy that I took the opportunity because it provided me with a lot of skills and a lot of development to do what I'm doing now. But if the same me was in that, and I'm happy I did it too, because it led me to bodybuilding, right? If I don't do that, I mean, I'm probably not a bodybuilder. I'm probably still fighting, you know?
Well, I want to hit the timeout button for a second, because I want to go back to the Lashley fight. That seemed to be a pivotal moment for you. And, you know, I've seen some of your fights, and, you know, I think that might have put you on the map according to this. So let's talk about the weight difference. You were fighting at 185. What did Lashley come in at?
What was interesting is that fight, I was like, I want to say I was like 210. I cut a lot of weight to make 185. I want to say I was like 210. It was supposed to be a catch fight. Lashley, I think he was supposed to weigh like 240 or 250, and I think he weighed like 20 pounds over that or something. It was like 270 or something crazy. And I actually got a fight bonus for his miss in weight. they paid me extra money for that because he was so overweight.
We're talking about a 60 or 70 pound difference in some cases. Is that what I just heard?
Yeah, correct.
Oh my gosh. So I mean, when you're looking at Lashley across the octagon, and I guess UFC is octagon, Bellator is, what are your thoughts as you start that fight?
Oh man, I was excited. The audience was very charged. We had a whole workup video going to it. But there was a point where too, it was weird going into that fight because I was supposed to have fought somebody else, a Brazilian guy that was a UFC vet. And when he got injured, I didn't think I was fighting. So I actually, what was crazy is before that fight, I ended up doing something for GNC. There was a whole thing. I had to go out of town actually to take care of. And while I was out of town, that's when Joe called me. And I mean, that's a fight you got to take. And I accepted the fight. And then I'm like, well, I guess I need to get back home. But it was kind of a rough deal because there was something that had happened at a store where there was like literally no staff. And I hired a whole nother team there. And it was it was Fort Riley, Kansas, and Fort Riley. I didn't think of it as I wasn't scared or I wasn't, and you know, he knew that actually. I think he assumed that I would be intimidated, and I think he actually developed a lot of respect for me after that fight because of some of the things that people still talk to him about. I had a guy. I was talking to this guy named Leo Pla just randomly on social media, and he's like, "Hey, you know who I saw the other day?" I go, "Who?" He goes, "Bobby Lashley." He goes, "You know what he told me?" He goes, "What did he tell you?" He goes, "You're the last." He goes, "John Ott's the last person I'd ever fight in a cage in my life."
Well, I want to ask you this because Lashley obviously made it to WWE. Brock Lesnar has a wrestling background. Lashley, of course, has a wrestling background. You have a wrestling background. Where did you feel you had the advantage? Where do you feel like he had the advantage?
Well, I knew right. So first of all, Lashley's takedown is he has a really good takedown. Like I will definitely say he has one of the best takedowns I've ever had in my life. Well, him and there's this guy named Pamen Poskalev who was I think he finished 4th at Worlds. I wrestled with him in college. Beast. His wrists were bigger than his fist. It was a freaking.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So Lashley. I think he realized he doesn't. Well, the thing about Lashley too is he does not like to get hit, and I think I kind of what we had expected is we'd expected him to run out of gas. We knew that his wrestling was good, but we weren't impressed by his stand up or his ground. So we expected it to go the distance. And really what I expected, I was looking for a knockout in that fight. I just because his stand-up went good. And you see that and at the end of the fight, I have some openings and there's this one part of the fight where just the audience is like, oh, smash, oh, smash, oh, smash. And it was very, and you know, it's, I should have kept my composure. I got a little too deep in there, and I should have just played a little smarter with my hands. And I got a little too close. I actually stuffed a couple of his takedowns. He was tired. But then he finally got that takedown, and that was pretty much the end of the fight. He was incredibly strong. He needed more jiu-jitsu skills. He didn't really have a jiu-jitsu game. And he didn't really have great stand-up. But he had incredible strength and great wrestling. And he was completely gassed out to the fight. The guy was dead. Like he barely made it out of there. And I actually did. He was bleeding. I had him cut open at the end.
Well, he does carry a lot of muscle, and that does come with the territory, right? You get a young, quick guy, and they're in shape. Obviously, you look a little different now because you've put on size. Did you ever think about going into WWE? Did you ever just want to be a UFC fighter? I know we're about to open the chapter into GNC. Did you ever look at wrestling as a possible career?
Yeah. Well, people would have actually talked to me about that, but I thought it just wasn't my path. It wasn't my path, honestly. Like, I guess when we transitioned into GNC actually, so at that point, like I really like mixed martial arts, and I had to make a really tough choice, and I've made a few tough choices in my life, and that's part of what's helped shape me and make me successful. But that was a really hard choice. But what I saw was a different life. I saw a life of, okay, I can really impact this organization. Okay, I could potentially build my way up the ladder, be a regional director, be a VP. How do I get to a CEO spot? I thought like the house with kids might be something that I may like. After doing it for a few years, it just, it was just not for me, I guess is the best way to put it. It wasn't that I didn't, so the value out of GNC that I got was initially, I loved the job all the way up. And, I learned a lot from that organization. I learned a lot of things I would do, a lot of things I don't want to do. It was a huge part of growth for me. I just didn't feel like, I guess the best thing is I just didn't feel like I was living my life's mission is what it came down to. October 8th, 2016 is when I woke up and I'm like, this is not what I want to do, but I had, like, what I would say is I had a good life. Like, what I liked about GNC was initially I was able to make a huge impact. I took the bottom ranked district in the company all the way up to the top. I was able to actually help out and contribute to organization. And kind of as things evolved with the organization, I mean, my career path was regional director, and I was pretty close to being there. I mean, they were grooming me up for it. And I was running multiple markets. During COVID, I ran all of Alaska and all of Washington. And right before that, I was running a market in Reno, Nevada. At one point I had like 84 stores. It was brutal, man. It was brutal. But I think like really for me, what it was, I always just wanted my own thing. I always loved bodybuilding. But it's really hard to, when you're invested into a company, when you're invested trying to make a relationship work that just doesn't work, when have a nice house, when you have money, sometimes it's hard to just make like this, because it was a massive pivot. It wasn't just like from 2016 to 2022, I had to go through a lot of different things to just get to this spot. You know what I mean? And what's crazy is like, now I'm in a really good spot with bodybuilding. My company's profitable, which was not, you learn a lot.
Whole nother story, right?
Whole nother story. Yeah. Yeah. We made a lot of mistakes and we did a lot of great things, and we're in a good spot now. So,
yeah.
But,
well, I want to ask you this because I know I hit the timeout button a lot. We've got
good.
Folks from all over the place right now, and they're kind of sending comments our way. And a lot of you are going to watch us on the replay. For those of you who don't know John's story, John is the kind of guy to where when you meet him, he's going to make an impression on you. And so you're up in the Pacific Northwest from 2016, and I'm going to get to some photos here in just a second. You weren't always like, when you were fighting professionally, you look nothing like you do now.
No.
So really, where did you start to get serious in your training? Is this when you're moving up to more of the Washington area, or is it right after you're transitioning out of your, MMA career and getting into bodybuilding? How long did it take you to really start seeing the results that you wanted to see and seeing a path into bodybuilding?
As I transitioned out of the mixed martial arts career into GNC, I started powerlifting. And I moved some heavy weight, and I actually had built like a pretty good physique. I mean, when I had moved out to Washington originally, I was around 270 pounds. I was a big boy. And we had, but really to answer your question, October 8th, 2016, I had basically done some soul searching. You know what I mean? I'm looking at my life, and I'm like, there's the pros, there's the cons, and I just wasn't happy. I got depressed. I was depressed. I'd never been depressed in my life. I'm a very happy person, but I was depressed, and I read the book Relentless like 9 times.
Yes.
Like literally, I'm not joking. I literally I would go home. I'd put my headphones on when I was at the house, and I'd literally read. I was trying to figure out like what I wanted to do, and I was reflecting back on fighting. Because the thing is, like, if I wanted to go back to fighting, I instantly make money. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'd make some. I bet at least 1,000 and 1,000, or 5 and 5, or something. You know what I mean? Where bodybuilding, it's like, well, you're paying money. So, but my whole mission in bodybuilding, I guess, wasn't necessarily to make money. It was to pursue what I really loved. And I think that's really important to do, because like. What's funny is like when I originally went to college, I started to get a kinesiology degree, exercise science, and at that point, I didn't think you could make any money doing it.
Funny enough, right?
At that point, I'm like, well, I don't necessarily want to be a trainer at a gym, and I just didn't really fully understand it. But in 2016, I was doing a lot, man. I was reading books, I was listening to a lot of different. I was watching a lot of YouTube videos, everything from Jay Cutler to Rich Piana. I mean, Rich Piana is actually a perfect example. I mean, my focus is different than his, but he did a really good job building his brand. You know what I mean? He actually did a really good job just being a totally honest person, laying things out for people. And you got to respect that. And he did a lot of good for the bodybuilding culture. Actually, if you think about it, Jay Cutler. Or Ronnie Coleman, you know what I mean? They're different beast, obviously, where they went through their full bodybuilding career. But I was going through and I was trying to figure out, what is it that I want, and how can I make this happen? And literally, I was reading, I was studying, and I was literally putting together a game plan. And October 8th, and so I went back to actually a mixed martial arts gym for a while, and I still had it, man. I walked in there and they're like, "Who are you?" Like I was schooling people. I knocked someone out with a spinning back fist.
Oh my gosh!
It was funny because I get up in the cage and this guy, I guess, pretty good. We're sparring, and I, and he was just, and I was like, "Oh, that felt good."
It didn't feel good for him, but it felt.
It felt good for him, but it felt good, And I was subbing people, and then finally they're like, "Oh, you're like an actual," I'm like, "Yeah." And,
you're not learning anymore. You're actually teaching.
Yeah, but then at that point too, I'm lifting, and I'm just like, man, like I've always just wanted to. I've been obsessed with bodybuilding for a long time. Yeah. And I literally woke up on October 8th, 2016, and I walked into a room. It was like the spare bedroom at that point, and I took my first set of progress pictures. Then I called my friend Ryan, and I go, "Hey Ryan, I want to do Emerald Cup 2018. Can you help me?" And he's like, he goes, "If you looked in the mirror," he goes, "John, you're out of your mind." He's like, "You're in the worst shape you've ever been in your life." He's like, "You're not going to do a body." I'm like, "I'm serious." He's like, "Gain 30 pounds and call me." So of course I gained 30 pounds and I called him.
But that was also just out of curiosity. What are you weighing around this time when you're showing this off? Because you got Big Dan's Nutrition in the back. This wasn't the Emerald Cup, obviously, but where were you at right around there?
Spokane. That was around 234.
So you fought at 185 MMA. This is basically another 60 pounds. And by the way, usually you drop a lot of weight, and you shred down. And I know that I saw you just a couple weeks ago. You're insanely shredded at this point. when you did this shoot with LGS, and I know Sarah and Jeff Malone are watching, I love that shirt, by the way. I mean, those are pretty classy. A lot of IFBB pros wear them. A lot of sponsors out there. James Molcherian in Iowa has a few of those as well. Where were you typically here, stage weight wise, or how far out, or how far after your show was this?
This was the night I was training legs, the night of the show.
Oh my God.
This is like me. Actually, you know what's funny? Big Dan is with me right here.
Yeah.
Dan's with me right here. Who else? Raj. So Raj is great. He's a photographer. Raj took that shot. Actually, Raj took that shot. But literally after that show, we went and we had we went to a steakhouse. I usually go to Outback, but Outback was closed, so we went to another one. And I'd get 2 sweet potatoes and 2 chicken breasts, and then a thing of broccoli, and then I got a thing of rice, and then we went and trained legs.
Wow.
So
you're still eating clean. You just doubled up. Make sure you got a good leg train, huh?
Yeah, I did 4 shows in a row.
So what 4 shows were those? And what was the time frame?
4 weeks.
Holy crud. Back to back. Golly, man. Well,
So,
go ahead.
So the Texas Legends was the first one. And the Texas Legends, what made that show special is Keon Pearson and Martin Fitz had guest posed there. And after I won overall, I walked off the stage and Martin was like, "Hey, stay out here. Me and Keon want you to come out there and pose with us. We're going to talk to them. If they don't call you out there, just walk out when we're both on stage." I'm like, okay. So it was really cool, getting to pose with them. And then they started talking about, well, what national level show you're doing? You got to do USA's. That's kind of where that whole conversation is. Because originally I wasn't going to do any of these shows. There's a whole other story behind that. I wasn't planning on doing anything till NBC Nationals at the end of the year. But I'm happy that I took this route because it was definitely good for building my brand, and it definitely made me a better bodybuilder. Well, I'll tell you what it was. So I was at a posing seminar in Nebraska, and me and this gal named Jenny, she's going to be doing USA's. She's a really good wellness competitor. We went out there really just to network, because she's from Brazil and I'm from Missouri, but I was out of the Midwest for so long, and me and her just showed up and like, who the heck are you two? And Jack, he's the guy the promoter out there, really great guy. He runs a really good show, man. He's like, "So are you going to compete in my show?" I go, "No, I just got a booth." He's like, "Do you got a problem with the Midwest?" He's like, "Why are you not?" I'm like, "Oh, no, Jack, I'm not competing to NBC." He's like, "You're in shape." And I'm like, "Well, I did a photo shoot, so I am kind of in shape." He's like, "Just do the show." And I'm like, and so my brain started ticking. And then we'd set up booths at all these shows, So Brian Dobson, helps out with all those shows down there. And Brian's like, man, he's like, you meet a lot of good people doing this. And Brian's like, just one of those great guys. He carried my pre-workout. He was one of the first gyms to pick it up. Pretty cool to be a Metroflex,
Yeah.
Just get the people in there to stop taking it off the shelf. Supposedly Ronnie Coleman's drinking it at night.
It's crazy. You get into those kind of gyms. That's like a Legends gym, and the Legends are just taking all your stuff. So, sheesh. By the way, Jack has a great show. I know you did. I think that IFBB Midwest Pro, and you might have seen our good friend Chris Stone out of Texas. He likes to expedite that show, so you can't miss him with that beard. Yep. You did that show. Yeah. And, it's funny how it becomes a smaller world. Like you just mentioned, you're from Missouri. You worked up in Washington. You now live in Kansas City. I met you in Houston, Texas. So where haven't you gone? And you were networking in Nebraska with other athletes. What was the show after the Midwest that you did? Because when you did 4 in a row, I don't think very many people do that, if any. What was your reasoning for doing that?
Well, we had the booth set up. And I mean, honestly, I wanted to make a statement. I was like, well, there's no point in just doing one show to win it, right? Like if I'm just going to do one show, I've already done one show and I've won overall. So I'm like, if I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to I want to have a purpose. My purpose is to show people that, I'm not just some other bodybuilder out there winning shows. I'm some bodybuilder out there, really trying to build a career for himself. And also, one of my missions has always been to show people when they believe in themselves and never give up, they can be successful. I think one of the number one reasons people aren't successful is because they give up too fast, you know, when it gets hard, or, you know, when a challenge comes up financially. You know, I'll tell you right now, you're going to go broke trying to get rich.
You know, you're not the first person to say that either. And I'm glad you did, because somebody needed to say it and needed to be heard by somebody listening. Go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, well, after the Midwest Championships was cool. He had a lot of great breast posers there too. Derek Lunsford, actually, man, he's a great guy too. He's just a nice dude. I don't know how else to explain it. I ran into him and he actually recognized me, which I was like, Derek Lunsford, that's cool, you know. And then then I got off stage. He's like, bro, he's like, you got to do USAs. He's like, you know, you could be Mr. USA. And I'm like, and at that point, I'm just like, you know, it's just hit me. I'm like, shit, I got to do USAs. At this point, I've had like five. It was like five IFBB pros tell me to do USAs. Like, so it's like, you know what I mean? There's certain things that you're just, in life, you have a mission, you know what I mean? And then when that happens, if you're not pursuing it, you're not doing something right, you know? So Lunsford at that show. And honestly, I think that show was probably my best look. Then the next show was the Empire Classic, which was the Big Dan sponsor in the background. That show I looked pretty good at. I looked pretty good at that show too. The funny thing about that show, so one of the things I had to do to be successful in my business is I had to get my wholesale price down. And man, you got to buy a lot of stuff to get your wholesale price down. And I took a risk. I was like, basically, when I went into it, I had a pretty good, you know, egg saved up, you know, and we ran through a lot of money. Really, you got to learn. Like when you're trying to work with retailers, trying to run a website, trying to work at Amazon, trying to do events, man. Like my first event, I flew me out, I flew my mom out, I threw Shane out, I threw Jenny out. That was like you know what I mean? It was like, whoa, like this is not a good ROI. Like, you know, but you got to figure that out, you know? I lost my train of thought, man. I'm sorry. So when I got to the Empire Classic, I was literally like out of money. I spent like $18,000 on raw ingredients. I was like, it's what you got to do though. You know what I mean? It's like, I was looking at it, I was looking at the numbers, and I was like, and my whole goal originally was to not have, I don't know if I would have done it or not. It probably would have been a smarter choice. Everybody told me I should have got a business loan to begin with, like a $100,000 business loan. And I just told myself it wasn't necessary, that I'd be able to figure it out. And I mean, obviously I figured it out, but it definitely would have I don't know, it would have made the process easier, but it also would have made it less challenging. So I don't know if I would have worked maybe as hard or as fast as I did. You know what I mean? So there is something to that. I mean, I'd probably create a little more credit card debt than I wanted to, and having like a really low interest $100,000 loan would have been better, but it also made me really have to hustle, man. And that did a lot of things for the brand. It was hard in some cases where, you know, I wanted to move faster on some things, you know what I mean? But it also really made me take a deeper look at the business and where, you know, we're spending too much money, or we're not spending money as impactfully as it should be as well. And that's kind of where we're at now. I mean, so I could just go through a whole list of things. Like we're the spot we're in right now is a complete 360 to where we were at 2 months ago. You know, and it wasn't that we were doing necessarily anything wrong. It was that I had to figure it out. You know, I had to figure out the system and I had to understand it. And like originally when we launched the product, you know, it was one scoop and it hit you like a freaking brick, man. It was strong, but it was too strong, right? Then I broke it down to the 4 scoops and it was better. Well, the flavoring was still terrible at that point. And the flavoring, man, I didn't sleep for like 4 weeks trying to figure out the flavoring, but now I have one of the best. You drink Apple Fire, I'm telling you right now, you probably it'll be one of the best. If not the best, it'll be close. It's the best. It's the best pre-workout you ever tasted. It's that good. Like it's that good. But to get it to be that good and to learn. So, for example, I don't want to get too sciencey, but sucralose. You just think of sucralose as an artificial sweetener, right? I mean, I know like a lot more about the other ingredients than I know about sucralose. Well, I know a shit ton about sucralose now, man.
Yeah.
You can get sucralose. You can get 3 different kinds. One to have a red tint, one to have a white tint, one to be a clear powder, right? They all taste different. They all have different molecular weights, right? The sucralose we use is the best grade sucralose you can use. It has a lower molecular weight. I'm telling you right now, it digests a lot better than regular sucralose too. And some of this other stuff is just gross, you know, but you don't really know. I mean, I would have never known that. Even talking to some of the other companies, you know, because being with GNC, I built some relationship. I never would have known that. You know what I mean? Unless I bought sucralose. I bought sucralose from like 6 different places at one point, trying to figure out. And they all, I'm telling you, they all taste different. They all look different. The scoop volume dropped from 7.5 cc's to 5.5 cc's. Dropped 2 cc's just by changing the sucralose. You know what I mean? So there's like a lot of little things when you get into this. You know, think about the packaging, right? When I came up with the packaging, I mean, I did this all myself. I'm not a graphic artist. I just knew what I wanted it to look like, but it was hard to like make it look the way I wanted it to look, you know? Now we got a label printed on chrome film, man, and it's like it has a hologram in the background of me doing a decline cable fly, you know, and the whole point of that is like I want it to be like what our pre-workout evolved into is at first it was just a pre-workout for only the hardcore consumer. Now with the 4-scoop dosing and the way the formula is the best part. And it was kind of something I just ran into. Like I had thought about it, but I didn't think about it as being as scalable as it was. So like there's something called theobromine. A lot of people don't want to use it. Theobromine and caffeine work together. Theobromine, the energy is a lot more euphoric. It puts you in a really good mood. But it also doesn't raise your blood pressure. So when you put the two together, you have 75 grams of theobromine and 75 grams of caffeine. It's really kind of like 150, but the energy's better. And then you can scale it up. So, I mean, once you get to the hardcore dose, just talking about that one ingredient, or this is what other people understand too about it, is Norvaline should be in every pre-workout, but Norvaline's expensive, man. 25 kilograms of Norvaline is like $4,000. 25 kilograms of citrulline you can get between $600-800 if you get a good deal on it. I spent way more than that on it before, but if you get a good deal, you get between $600-800. But you only put 250 milligrams of Norvaline in it. But what Norvaline does is it makes the nitric oxide work better. When you take citrulline, that's what creates the nitric oxide. As that's happening, your body produces something called arginase. Arginase breaks down nitric oxide production. Norvaline is an arginase inhibitor, so it makes the pump a lot like stronger and longer lasting. So what I have is you can use less citrulline and get more pump, right? Well, really, if you have like 2 to 3 grams of citrulline, 125 milligrams of Norvaline, your pump's gonna be like the same as it would be with 6 grams, approximately around ballpark it. You do 6 grams of citrulline and 250 milligrams of Norvaline, it's gonna be the best pump you ever had if you ever never had Norvaline before. You know what I mean? So, but there's other ingredients like alpha GPC and huperzine A. Everything scales together. So what I ended up making was a pre-workout that, you know, if you can have 75 milligrams of caffeine, you can take. So most of these people that have to really worry about their blood pressure stuff, a lot of them can still use it. Or if you're that hardcore, you want the Ferrari of hardcore pre-workouts, you take 4 scoops. And
that'll get you going.
You'd be like, okay, I get it now. You know what I mean? So, and that's really what I wanted it to be. But then the other thing, it's funny because I was in North Carolina. That's a whole nother story, man. This guy in North Carolina goes, he understood the formula. He looked at it. He's like, dude, this formula is insane. He's like, there's 36 servings in here, and it's $45. And he actually raised the price. It's $50. He's selling it for $50 out of his gym. He's like, everybody else has it. I'll sell it for $50. I'm like, okay, man. You know what I mean? So, you know, there's been some blessings in there. And well, also you talk about hustling and working hard to make money. So like, I've connected with other people, man. Like, and like when you're following your path, you just have like blessings. I don't know how else to put it, man. Like, so the way I got to North Carolina was I met this guy named Taj. Taj, dude, he's like one of the coolest people I've ever met in my life. Like, it's just, Taj was like a really high level Navy guy, and then he retired and he became he owned a huge insurance business, right? A huge like he had like 90 people working for him, like huge. killing it. And he got in a car wreck. And when he got in his car wreck, he got traumatic brain injury. So he was a liability. I mean, you if you talk to him, you would never know it. And he has a lot of other things, medically wrong with him. It was a really bad car accident. Almost killed him. Like, almost killed the guy. But he connected me on Instagram, and he just had seen me, and he liked my story. And, he's really into it, man. And this guy, he's 60 years old. My flight got delayed. I didn't get there till like 1 o'clock in the morning. We went to the rec yard and we trained our ass off at 1 o'clock in the morning. And he loved every second of it. This dude's like pushing it hard, man. And man, he paid me over my rate. He paid for me to fly out there. He got me connected to the gym. The gym's called the Rec Yard, by the way. Really cool gym. The guy that owns it, man. He was in prison for 16 years, right? He got 3 degrees, and he got a bunch of different certificates, right? And he gets out of prison, and he still can't get a job. And he starts working for this frame shop, and he's staying after work because he's trying to get better at building these frames. So he's taking these scrap frames and he's putting them together. And the owner comes in and is like, "Hey, what are you doing in here?" He's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'm just practicing." He's like, "Let me see it." Like, these are pretty good. So they put them on the shelf and they started selling them. Well, he told the owner what he wanted to do, and the owner didn't like his business plan for the gym. So, make a long story short, he ends up opening a tanning salon. Well, the guy ends up opening 4 tanning salons, and now he has a gym too with a ton of members. Great. I mean, really, really awesome culture. And what's really funny is it's called the Rec Yard for a reason. It's set up. He has an outside area with barbed wire around it. And then there's basketball goals off to this. It's literally set up like a prison yard outside. And
people love it, huh?
Dude, well, what I love about it, man, is like, dude, this guy literally like changed his entire life. Yeah. Like, he went from being like a bad dude, you know what I mean, to like, and he learned. He really, applied himself. He started from the bottom, and now he's killing it, legally. He told me, he goes, "I had my last $10 million in one account, and the only reason they found it was the only account didn't move in 16 years.
In activity. Well, I want to ask you about this too, because, you've talked a lot about others' businesses, and what it takes to succeed is obviously different for everybody. Let's talk about Yep Nutrition. Now, I'm going to put you on the hot seat for a second. Do you have anything around with your brand next to you right now that you can show? I thought you might have something. We did not plan this at all. But, I was getting a chance to I walked by your booth 6 times before I talked to you. And when it comes to Yep, I had no idea, because a lot of people think supplements are the same. Labrada had a booth there. I know that, a lot of different supplements. And when I came and talked to you specifically, this is where I met you at the branch. And, that's the booth. I know that you'll see that label that John just showed you in the background on the tablecloth next to Branch's butt. When I interviewed Branch last year, it was funny because we got a chance to talk a lot about his career. We've also gotten a chance to talk to you a little bit about your career. And now your baby is born. Yep is born. When did you launch it? And really, how has that kind of changed your life, if you don't mind touching on that?
It's completely changed my life, man. So transitioning out. So originally, I left Washington. I moved back to Kansas City, and my goal was to launch it in 5 years. Well, I got invited to do a guest posing. The Craigs invited me back out to guest posing in Idaho. I mean, man, that was like the first show, and that's the first show I prepped myself. And I just completely nailed it. I remember I was in the back, and I took off my shirt, and everybody was just looking at me, and these two younger guys go, "Well, that's the guy that's going to win."
Game over. I'm done.
Yeah. So I nailed that show, and they invited me back to guest pose. And that, for whatever reason, man, that just like kind of started to speed things up for me. And then I decided to do the Northwest Championships, which I'm happy I did. I knew I wasn't going to be like in 100% shape. I was kind of disappointed not to win overall, but this guy named Dylan, man, out of O'Malley's, like O'Malley has, dude, that's another phenomenal gym, by the way. great people come out of that gym. He deserved to definitely win that show. I mean, he was peeled to the bone. But it was funny. It was like that night I went back and I was reflecting, and I was like, Jeff, I always have like these. I stay up late and I just think, like, my brain is very active at night, and I'm like, man, it's time. But just the feel of the show was completely different, like people look at you different. You even though I didn't win the show, it's just like, just being there, it was like there are people that literally just came to the show because I was there. You know what I mean? They're just the level of respect, and just like you can tell your bodybuilding career's on a different level. And my physique still looked really good too. It wasn't like that I looked terrible. It just was, I just wasn't peeled to the bone.
Yeah.
Well, so that night is when I decided that I was going to leave my job. So literally, I stayed up all night typing this letter to send to the VP and to send to my boss and to send to this guy named Mario Adams, which definitely helped my life. And, finally I sent it. And what's really crazy, right? Like, so I send this letter, and I didn't send it until the next night. And I'm at the gym, and I'm on this treadmill, and I see this follower. This guy follows me. I go, fuck, that's Ed Connors. And I'm like, no. And I'm like, and so I don't know what I said. I think I messaged him. I go, hey, is this really Ed Connors? I think that's what I said. And then so the dude just starts talking to me, right? Like the guy just starts talking to me, like just a normal dude. So we start talking. We hit it off. Like we hit it off. Really, 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 like just we hit things off. And he just had finished his book, The Three Musketeers. I'm gonna read one line out of it because this line is a very powerful line. It's like it gets me. So it was when I was I was one merit badge away from becoming an Eagle Scout, and that merit badge was the badge for physical fitness. I'm just like, wow. And then it fast forwards to 30 years later, or whatever. He's in the top of Sears Towers, and he's selling his share Gold's Gym for $30 million or $33 million. I don't know. It was some ungodly amount. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And and he's helped. He actually helped me make one serious choice. So I'm reading this book, and I quit my job, and so I had a company car, and I had to turn that in, and my ex-wife blew out the engine of my A6, and I bought my ex-girlfriend a car, but we broke up, and I had to have it towed back from Washington. At this point, it's set back at my dad's house for like 6 months. And there was a car, like when she needed a car. I'm happy I got it for her, and it was right. She paid me for it. Her car broke down. She's going to buy this piece of junk. And I go, well, let's get a car. We'll finance it. You pay me for it. We'll be good. She wanted a Ford Focus, and there's nothing wrong with the Ford Focus. It's just not my style, man. And actually, it's been like one of the biggest blessings for me ever. So what's funny is I'm about to buy an A8, right? I'm buying it off that Carvana. And I put down like a $250 deposit, and they mail you the papers. Well, I'm reading Ed's book. In the book, he's talking about how he had saved up a bunch of money, and he was going to still buy this black BMW. And he decided not to buy the black BMW because he could use the money for Gold's Gym, right? Mm-hmm. And that was a big thing for him because he needed it, And I messaged him, and I'm like, Ed, like I haven't bought it yet, but I'm about to buy A8. And I just read your book, and I don't know if I can now. Like, I also got to drive this Ford Focus if I don't. And so this is what he told me. He goes, John, if you really want to do something cool, he's like, save up the money and buy your dream car cash. He's like, and driving that car will make you work harder.
It really will.
And it certainly has. And it's saved me a ridiculous amount of money. I mean, that thing gets 33 miles a gallon. The car payment's nothing. The insurance is nothing. Like, I mean, when I think about all the things that came together earlier on, like if I would have bought that A8, I mean, I probably would have made it, but it would have been the most like I might have died. Yeah, literally, like I don't know how else to put it.
I can't tell you what you just said, how that interacts and integrates with everything, because I have Ed's number as well. And we got a chance to talk for about 45 minutes. So I will be having a call with him next week specifically about you. And it's going to be a good call, by the way. And I bought my dream car, my RS5, with cash. And I realized it wasn't a dream. It was a nightmare with the insurance, with the gas, with the speed, with the enjoyment, and with the addiction of loving to drive it. So I ended up selling it, believe it or not. And so an Audi A8 and an RS5 and an A6, you're talking my language, dude. I was just sitting here trying not to talk as you're like, dude, there is way too much commonality in this thing.
That's
but
funny.
We might not have ever had this podcast if that A8 was bought, because you know what? Maybe Yep Nutrition doesn't start. Maybe you don't go in that same path. Let's talk about John Ott today. You're about ready to prepare. You're going to battle here soon. You've got a show coming up. When is the show? How do you feel about it? And do you feel like you're at your best ever?
Yeah, we're 14 weeks out or 14 days out now. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing else I could do, man. Like, I haven't had beef since November of last year. I've literally been on a diet. I mean, I've been so highly consistent. Everything has just been like, I mean, literally, I mean, every second of every day is maximized. The only thing I could do probably better is sleep more, but I'm not a person that requires a lot of sleep just by nature. I'm not, you know. No, I can't push it though. And that's the thing I always got to think about, especially right now, is I have to force myself, hey, you got to get at least 4 hours of sleep. If you get less than 4 hours of sleep, you're going to be in bad shape. You know what I mean? So I've been consistent in that. But man, my diet's been on point. I'm peeled to the bone already. And it just, right now I'm at that point where everything's just like really getting tight. And I'm just like, but it's also to the point too where I'm feeling the food and it's starting to hurt. You know what I mean? Like as I get closer to a meal, I'm just like, I just want some oatmeal, man. I want oatmeal real bad.
We've all been there. Brown sugar and oatmeal and some cinnamon, right?
Yeah, Saigon cinnamon and almonds. Yeah.
Cinnamon and almonds it is. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So you're 14 days out right now. Obviously you're going to be traveling. You've done everything that you possibly could. You're working on slowing down to stay at your best. Yeah. What would you say? You know, and what I love about you is it's very simply, it doesn't matter the outcome for you. You basically do what you can to control what you can, and you let the outcome happen. What are your plans after nationals? I mean, you know, you obviously have a business. You're very successful. You're highly driven. No matter what the outcome, you get your pro card, great. No matter how that show turns out, tell us what's in store for John Ott in the next 6 months.
I'm going to take bodybuilding as far as I can go.
There you go.
So, right. I guess when I was doing this whole thing, I've always been really passionate about supplements. Obviously, it's what I've done my whole life. And pre-workout, I've obviously been very passionate about. And then what really made me passionate about is I just feel like there's a lot of opportunity to make better products, and people aren't making the products better because it's their way of saving on margins. And I think a big part of the problem is manufacturing. And, you know, and where I'm at is in a really good space. So I got a great product with a great wholesale price, and it tastes good. You know what I mean? So I'm going to continue to drive the product. We're going to launch another product soon called Stupid Pumped, little I, little ED. It's nice. What's crazy is I wanted to launch it sooner, but I've gotten a little smarter about how I do these things because I just know that the wave that comes with having to buy these big batches of raw ingredients, and you really should have a good nest egg saved up for that. You know what I mean? Because I want to make sure I'm in a good position. We've actually already bought the containers. I'm almost done with the label. I know the scoops that I want. We're almost ready to. We're actually selling it too. We're selling it in little 2-serving containers for $5 online. YepShrink.com. And we actually sell them every day. And So I never was a flavor guy ever, but what I learned is there are people that care more about the flavors than they do even the product.
Yep.
I'm not joking. And so this strawberry lemonade, it's good, and it's no calories, and there's no gluten, and I don't put any artificial colors in it. It's good, and it's not done up in a way that's unhealthy either. You know what I mean? And that's kind of the trick behind this whole thing. And it's flavoring is a science, man. I literally, when I was earlier on, so originally you asked me how I started out. I was at the gym and I had mixed up the first batch, and it was in. Hey Shane, can you please grab me one of those little things off the window? So I'm gonna show you what this is, the second generation one, but I mixed up. Yeah, I mixed up this little container. Yeah, that one right there. Thank you. So
oh my gosh.
So I had people order 200 of these, okay? And this was before there was even a label. I added the label, okay? And I'm trying to make it taste good because people are buying the hell out of it and it tastes like crap. And I'm like, okay, people are going to stop buying it because it tastes like crap. So literally that's when my mom started working for me. She was working for me. And I think she was just worried about me because I hadn't slept for a while and I was trying to and my taste buds were gone. Yeah. My taste buds were completely gone. And I overcompensated. I don't know how else to put it. Like I just got so obsessed with trying to make this thing taste good that I've gotten really, really good at flavoring. You know what I mean? The whole crazy thing about this whole thing is how everything comes together, man. Like, so we were talking about GNC. The guy, this guy named Shane Von Buren, he's the guy that hired me. Justin Torbert hired me, and Shane quickly saw, my ability to sell and, build a team and my work ethic. And he promoted me to store manager. And without him, I never would have become a district manager. I never probably would have become nearly as invested in GNC as I did. And that would have changed all my whole, what I know about business. I mean, I remember when I first got a store, I had set up how there's displays, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't really understand merchandising at all, which
no end cap display.
Obviously my attention to detail's gotten a little better. But so get this. So I moved back to Kansas City. Me and Shane, we both end up going to Washington, right? Like, so we end up taking over the region. He ends up going to a different company. Then we both end up back in Kansas City, right? Then now we're like the Yep guys. You know what I mean?
That's how you're known, right? That's your identity.
Without him, but how crazy is that? Without him, I mean, I literally, like, good luck. I couldn't do it. I mean, I would try, but it wouldn't be what it is right now. You know what I mean? There's too much. There's just between orders and making the product and making sure the product's made right and networking with retailers and traveling. And I mean, he without him, the company's not. He's been a big impact on my life from a professional development way. And he's also been a big impact on my life now. With the Yep strength, without him, the Yep strength is not the same Yep strength it would be.
Did you plan that ding, by the way, too? Because that was like perfectly timed. I'm just saying.
No, I'm sorry about that. I don't know. I thought it was off, so I don't know what's going on.
No, it's good. And, I just must say, in a saturated industry, especially when everybody's got the next big thing, you have found a way not only to make it successful and stand out, you have found a way to actually make it taste great while keeping the integrity of what's in there intact. Because you know what? We've all tasted stuff and we think that's great. We don't really care what it's in. And frankly, that's half the battle, right? If you can get both of those things and marry both of those things, you got a winner. And that's why people continue to come back to you. But, as we kind of wind down, because I know I don't want to keep you too long. And John, I have to say that this has probably been one of the most, and I don't even know if this is a word, funnest interviews. Can we say funnest?
Yeah, most fun.
A lot of times we don't like to script these things because the fact is we want to see where it goes and see how it flows. And I can tell just by you being humble from the very beginning to going through wrestling, going through MMA, getting into GNC and, you know, moving up the chain there, getting into bodybuilding and knowing not really what you had, but knowing you were good enough. And when people start telling you this, and now you're starting to see this, and going into a business and launching it from scratch, those are the kind of stories that people need and want to hear, because we all want something out of our lives, but you actually chose to make the decision to do it. So if you were, you know, talking to somebody who's struggling, make sure maybe they're on the fence, maybe they have tried something and failed multiply or miserably at this point, multiple times, which, you know, the failure is the part of the success. I'm sure not everything went perfect for you. What would your advice be to people doing bodybuilding, trying to start a business? Is that kind of the same thing? What would you say on your level of success, and how was your path?
You have to love it. It has to be what you love. I mean, if you really want to be highly successful at something, the first thing is you have to love it. You have to want to get up every day. I don't usually even set an alarm clock. I'm up. My brain's going. I'm ready to freaking go, man. You have to love it. You're going to have challenges. I don't care, regardless. You're going to run into something and you just can't stop, right? You're going to have, and if you're out of money, you just got to figure out how to make money. I'm not joking. Like, you got to grind, you got to hustle. You know, the thing is, what's really funny is people are so worried about money. I'm telling you right now, like, what worst case scenario? Like if you have nothing but a car, what can you do? You can Uber.
We didn't even say that either, but we just.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just like seriously, like there's always like, but this is the thing too, like, you have to be willing to work harder than anybody else. Like, that's the thing. Like, you got to really grind, man. Like, and you know, sometimes it hurts and it's hard, but like, when you start talking about what it takes to be a champion, and you go back and you look at all the champions, you look at Kobe Bryant, for example, dude, the guy didn't sleep. The guy didn't ever stop, you know, and that's ultimately what made him successful. All of them, every single one of them. You read anything by Tim Grover, Relentless, or any of that. That's one of the things. I mean, yeah, you gotta have a passion for what you're doing. You gotta have some kind of ability to do it, right? I mean, you gotta have, you know, in bodybuilding, you gotta have some type of genetics. I think that people can go a lot farther than they think they can go a lot of times with their genetic potential. They're just not willing to do it. I think a lot of people can do a lot more with their diet. I think a lot of people can do a lot more with their training. I was in a gym the other day, and I was talking to this person, incredible physique and incredible talent. And they finished their workout early because they were tired. And I told them, I'm like, look, if you want to get somewhere in this, you can't do that. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm not, you know, it's you and then her boyfriend goes, he would do it. But I think that's too, like, you know, you got to be compassionate, care about people, but you got to push people too. Yeah. You know what I mean? You got to build a good culture. I think building a good culture, like, if you're gonna, you got to have people. You got to have people in your corner too, right? Like, you can't do it all on your own. You know what I mean? And your success, you know, is ultimately, especially as Yep Strength continues to grow, you know, and one of the things that Shane's ultimately going to help me with, you know, eventually he'll be running probably a big part of the internal part of the company, you know what I mean, for as far as the manufacturing goes. And I just really want to be out there doing bodybuilding shows and selling products and connecting with people and really focus on the marketing. What I really want to do is I want to do product innovation. I want to do design. I want to do the sales part of it. I want to connect with people. I want to build a good culture. I think, like, you know, you talk about, like, there's more to it than just making money, right? When I was sitting there reflecting back, you know, I think one of the things that I was looking at is, like, I had a coach earlier on. His name was Walt Tolson, and I have a tattoo, and it's a bomb that says "Never Give Up." And I remember, like, he was the first person, I think, that made me understand, like, that I was a little different. There was a day we were running. It was raining. There was this hill. We called it Bomber Hill. We had a B. It was hardcore. It was hardcore, but not like they are today. We were running up and down this hill, and he just kept running. He just kept us running. We kept us running. He kept us running. He kept us running. And then people were stopping. You know what I mean? And he just kept us running, and it got down to be three of us, right? And I was the last one. I was the last one still running at the end of it. And I remember he told me, and at this point, I'm like basically living at the guy's house. My family's divorced, and this is what I'm. And he's like, John, he's like, if you do what you did on that hill with your life, he's like, you can do something amazing. And I think it's more about, for me, I want to leave a legacy and I think that right now people need to understand that, man. Like, if you really put in the work to do something and believe in yourself and never give up, that you can achieve it. And also, it's about community. I think community is really important too. You got to be good to people. There's so much just pressure on this. I let it all go, but I try to do my best part, and especially, one thing I've encountered coming into the supplement industry is there is some division where, people want you to be exclusive, or people, if you're at this gym, and I'm just like, look, man, I have a great wholesale price. You're going to make money selling my product. My goal is to build a community. I'm going to continue to build my career. Whether I'm in your store or not, you're going to want my product. You just will. I'm going to win my pro card. And one day I'll be on an Olympia stage. I'm going to do everything I can, take it as far as I can go. And, my goal is to be Mr. Olympia. It's a kind of a crazy goal. But that's, when I looked at it, when I timed it out, I told myself it was 2016. I told myself by October 8th, 2021 was my goal to become pro. I missed it a little bit, right? We're close. I have a pro level physique. So if I can get USAs, I'll be a little about 6 months off. Well, we went from 198.2 stage weight to, I don't know, man, I'm pulling it down as hard as I can. I don't think I'll get it to 235, especially as we start to carb up. So, I'm going to be big. I made progress from my last show to this show, which is crazy. And my strength is more. I probably actually hurt more too. But I want to leave a legacy, man. And I just want people to, hopefully I can be a good part of the community. And hopefully that, I guess I can just inspire people to do their best. That's what I care about. Because there's not a lot of coaches out there, and there's not a lot of people that really can't push people the way you want to push anymore. So hopefully I can set a good example of what hard work is.
Well, you're a heart guy, John, and very few are heart guys. They're always, head guys. They're thinking they're everything and they're God's gift. And I think with the story that you just told, a lot of people ask, hey, how can I follow John? Well, very simply, you can follow John Ott on Facebook. And that's where I found you. On Instagram is Ott Smash. And any website that they can go to check anything out supplement-wise.
Yepstrength.com.
Yepstrength, YEP strength.com.
Yeah.
And I wish I had that on the ticker, but I think that for those of you who have tuned in, I'm hoping you got a one or two pieces. I've gotten a ton. I love doing these things selfishly, because when you get to see amazing people like this, and I've tried that, and I absolutely am in love with it. So next time I see you, I'm buying batches. I'm not just buying one. And I just have to say that this time is really something I treasure. I don't know about that mini one, dude. I really like the marketing and the label on the next one.
Yeah, it's holding up there. It's holding up there.
But definitely, as you follow his journey through USAs and get a chance to see him earn his pro card, there's no question if. It's just now a question of when. And what I love what you said is, look, we missed it by a little bit. My goal was this date. No big deal. We're just extending that date out, so that way the goal is achieved, and it might not be at the time frame, but we're eventually going to hit that goal. We're not going to cut that thing short. So I think that's one of the things that people learn. So I just want to thank you. I know that we did get a little bonus time with you. Typically we go 45 to 60 minutes. And I think every single minute of this was well worth it, because you're going to see this guy on the Olympia stage someday. And then you're going to remember. And by the way, when you do, just remember the little people like me. I'm going to be like, I remember when I got to interview the John Ott, and that was basically July 15th, 2022. So this will be one of those dates that I truly, truly appreciate as well. So, so all of you out there, next Friday, we will be having Sammy Jo Freenberg joining us from Florida. She is going to be talking about natural state of bodybuilding. Go get your Yep Nutrition, yepstrength.com now. If you haven't already, give it a shot. You're going to fall in love with it. But John, thank you for the time.
Love it.
Yes.
I do one thing. Drink Yep. Get huge.
Oh, jackpot. Look at that. You started with the single buy, you end with the double buy, and you nailed it, dude. So for those of you who joined us, yes, thank you. Next time, Friday, 5:30 p.m., same time, same place next week. Can't wait to see you. Enjoy your weekend. And